It's really like, you know, love in the true sense of the word. Um, Doing the things that you know you need to do or you have to do versus things you want to do. And oftentimes in sports, if you just look at it as like, hey, I do it when I want to, or I only do the things I want to do, you will have zero success. You'll also have zero success in life.
What's up, people? Welcome to the Dear Young Athlete podcast, where we talk to athletes and coaches about their journeys and what advice they have for a younger version of themselves. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson. You could call me JT. If you want to hear my story, why I do this podcast, that'll be in episode number 1. But enough about me. Today, I have a very, very special guest. The man I'm speaking with today, he is a husband, he's a father, he's a former NFL football player. Yep, you heard me right, NFL. Now he's a collegiate head football coach. Above all that, he is a man of God. And in this brief window of time we've known each other, it's really been a pleasure to me. And I definitely look up to him in many ways. I know what he shares today is going to be a blessing. Without further ado, James Kilian. James.
JT, thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just enjoying the day and looking forward to spending some time with you here in our time together.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it too. So we'll jump right in. James, you are the first professional athlete we've had on the podcast. So obviously you've had an awesome career.
Yeah.
But where did it all begin for you? How did you fall in love with playing sports?
It was a passion I had from being as a small kid. I grew up in a large family. I have 6 other siblings, 3 sisters, older brother, and then I have a little sister and a little brother. So we grew up pretty competitive, playing all kinds of sports. We had a church across the street, so we played in the churchyard all the time. We had a basketball hoop at our house, so we were always playing baseball, football, basketball, whatever it may be. And we just we enjoyed watching football on Saturdays and Sundays, and it's just something that we grew up. It was just, grew up in a small town in Oklahoma. It was just kind of part of the fabric of the community. And, you really always looked up to the high school kids. You go to the football games, the basketball games, and those are people that you really wanted to be like one day. And obviously, like everybody, you had dreams and aspirations, or everyone that is playing sports at a young age has dreams or aspirations to play professionally. And I was just fortunate that the good Lord gave me the ability to play at that level and the size and all the things that it takes that you have no control over. I was blessed to receive.
So were you a Sooner fan?
We did grow up a Sooner family. And I played football at the University of Tulsa. It's funny, my older brother went to a Division II school in Kansas, Fort Hays State. We ended up playing Oklahoma when I was at Tulsa, and we were talking. He's like, I hope you have the game of your life, but I hope you lose. So I was like, yeah, it's terrible to hear from your own brother.
Yeah. I am a Husker fan.
Okay.
My great uncle, so my grandpa's brother, played quarterback in the Rose Bowl.
Oh, wow.
For the Huskers. So we'll try and get past the rivalry there.
For sure. Yeah, it's good they're going to play this year too. So it'll be an interesting game.
Yeah. Hopefully
rivalry.
It won't be a heartbreak like last year for me.
Sure. Absolutely.
So you grow up, you're playing with family, playing at the church. You get into high school, I imagine it starts getting a little more serious. So talk a little bit about the high school years.
Yeah. So I was from even in elementary and middle school, very motivated to take care of my body and work hard and put myself in the best position to be successful. As it worked out, I ended up starting as a freshman. We had actually a couple other teammates that started as freshmen as well on our squad, but yeah, just the level of commitment that it takes, and really also then the other pressures and things that come along with being in high school, and Friday night parties and things like that now you're being asked to go to and stuff like that, and so all those things are really adjustments that you have to make, and you're coming across different circumstances that you may have not prepared for or thought about, but you just again how to keep your perspective of like, what do you want to do? Like, what I was always involved with FCA. Like, what do I want my testimony to be when I get in front of kids and talk to them, or around my peers? Like, am I a guy that just talks about it during the week, or shows to church on Sunday, but on Saturday nights I'm not living that? So, and I would say that certainly I'm not perfect. It wasn't that I never had struggles, because I did. But it was something that I was always constantly thinking about, like, hey, this does seem fun, and I want to be part of the cool crowd. But I also had other priorities that really kept me out of a lot of trouble.
Wow. I'm sure being a QB1 as a freshman, you have a lot of pressure on you in football, obviously, but also socially. And so good that you were able to stay focused on your perspective. And like you said, no one's perfect, but that dream and your goals kind of kept you on the path that you wanted to be on. So was it just football?
No, being from a small town like I was, we'd go football right into basketball season, and then basketball season we'd go right into track, and we also play baseball at the same time. So if we had a baseball game that afternoon, then we would come in before school to do our track workout. Or there were some times where we played an early baseball game, and then we'd do our track workout after our baseball game was over. So that's just what you do when you're in a small town. If you want to stay involved with all these other sports. My senior year, I was contemplating not playing baseball, and just, doing one sport in the spring and kind of enjoying my senior year. Our defensive coordinator was also our head baseball coach. He was also our history teacher, and so I had told a couple of guys that I don't think I'm going to come out for baseball. And I think some word got back to him, and I saw him in the hall, and he said, "When I hear about this, you're not playing baseball this year." I was like, "I don't know who told you that, sir. I'm definitely playing baseball." He's a pretty intimidating guy. So it's like, "No, absolutely, I'm playing. Don't worry." So, but yeah, so all four sports, all 4 years.
Wow. I always envied, I grew up at a big suburban high school, and I kind of envied one of my friends who grew up in a small town. He was a multi-sport captain, lead role in the play, Eagle Scout, junior college graduate, all this stuff by the time he was 18. And I always was a little envious of like getting to do all that. And kind of where I grew up, it was like you don't play football and be in the choir. It's just not compatible. So sounds like an awesome thing. Was football always the dream? Or
I wasn't good enough to play another sport, I don't think. Or I'll say I didn't put the time into baseball to be the best baseball player I could be. I really enjoyed playing basketball. I liked playing basketball, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And football was my higher end. I mean, maybe I could have played Division II, Division III NAIA basketball, maybe, but nowhere near a Division I caliber basketball player. But
Speaking of that, then what does the transition to beginning to look at colleges and being recruited, how does that transpire?
yeah, so it really, all these things kind of line up in terms of my mindset and personality. I played 8-man football in high school. So playing quarterback at an 8-man school, you can't imagine that there's a lot of Division I programs that are really interested in an 8-man quarterback.
Right.
So I knew that I had to do everything above and beyond everybody else because that was kind of a huge knock against me. So what I did, now this is 20 years ago, longer than 20 years ago. I just went to the camps that I wanted to go to, or I went to the camps at the schools that I was interested in attending. And the camps back then they were like real camps. Like you would go for maybe 2 or 3 days and get instructions by coaches and stuff like that. What you have now are just these combines and 1-day camps and
Right.
all kinds of stuff. And the recruiting process is so sped up as it before it was, compared to what it was 20 some years ago. So I went to Oklahoma's camp. I went to University of Tulsa's camp. I went to Kansas State's camp.
Are these invitational?
Yeah, I guess, okay. So let me go back. I went to Arkansas's camp was an invitation. Tulsa's was an invitation. When I say that, it was it was just for juniors.
Mm.
Now, did they invite everybody? They probably invited a lot of people. I got like an invitation to go to Colorado's camp. I had never had any conversations with Colorado.
Mm.
But some of that they just want to have a bunch of people show up and make money, and I understand that. So, but my cousin played at Kansas State, so my uncle really always paid for me to go there, and they actually that was when Bill Snyder was the head coach. They had the best camp. It was really affordable. It was 4 days. It was a lot. Like you really needed to go into that camp in shape, especially like as a quarterback, like ready to throw because you threw a ton.
Mm.
And so that's kind of how I got on their radar because I went to their camps every year. And I remember I went there after my freshman year, and their offensive coordinator talked to me and said, "Hey, enjoy your senior year, have a great year. You'll do great things." And I said, well, I'm going to be a sophomore. And so he was like, "Well, make sure you continue to come back." And so that was always the school I wanted to attend. Ended up not getting a scholarship offer from them. And I got one from the University of Tulsa. And I think in a large part because of attending the camp that I attended.
Mm.
And then I know I had shared this with you, and I'll share this because I think it's important part of the faith piece. A guy by the name of Doc Blevins, who was FCA director at a big school in Tulsa Union forever, and really in Northeast Oklahoma, and he's not with us any longer, but has, the number of people that he's led to the Lord is, I don't think thousands of young kids.
Wow.
And the impacts he's had. He did an FCA. He was an FCA speaker at a huddle close to my hometown that we attended, and I think he had known, hey, there's a good player. He was really good about kind of knowing who the good players were in the areas, and he was Rocky Felker was the offensive coordinator at Tulsa at the time, and his son played at Tulsa Union, so he knew that family pretty well. And so whether he kind of reported back to him or, or he knew that they were talking to me, I forget which one it was. But I know when I ended up at the University of Tulsa, I ended up attending Doc's church, and
Wow.
we go out, we had, especially in the summer, maybe even during the year, we had like weekly breakfast together. These are probably all things that were illegal because I think he paid for my breakfast every time, but silly that those things were illegal then. And now we got, NLI deals and things like that. But
right.
So that's kind of how I ended up there.
Yeah.
I got one scholarship offer, so I didn't have to really anguish in terms of like, where do I go?
Yeah. Yeah. It's different to just hearing you talk 20 years ago. You can't post a clip on social media and,
I had to
and
make
blow
had
up.
to make a the VCR tapes
Yeah.
and send it to coaches. It's nuts,
Yeah.
absolutely nuts.
I've heard so far on on the podcast we've heard DVDs, but
Yeah,
you're the
there's no
first.
DVDs. No,
Yeah.
no.
So you show up freshman on campus. Talk to us a little bit about the journey and how you come to kind of earn your position.
Yeah. Well, this is it all really kind of again ties in to the faith, my faith journey, and my mindset, and just how whether nature and nurture, how I was raised, and then part of like just how I am. So I redshirted my first year, and my true freshman year I redshirted, which I really preferred to do. I wanted to do that. I'd played 11-man football in my entire life, and so that was a good opportunity for me. There was a new coaching staff coming in that recruited me. There's another story kind of behind that of the recruiting coach or the staff that offered me ended up getting fired about a month later. The new staff that came in, they came from Arkansas, and just so happened when I was at Arkansas at their camp, my group leader, coach, whatever you want to call him, was Keith Burns, who then became the head coach at Tulsa. So I had known him because I went to their camp. Had I not attended their camp, I mean, I don't. They very well did not have to honor my offer. They could have said, hey,
Right.
an offer anymore. But once he got the job, he called me and said, hey, I remember you. I really wanted you at Arkansas, but we went another direction. So so
Wow.
another thing that just worked out, like that I had no control over. So my first year I redshirt. My second year I start one game. We had a lot of turmoil. We were not good. My first year we were 5-7. That was the best record they'd had in many years. And then my redshirt freshman year, I should say, we went 1-10. I think that's right. We went 1-10. We had a lot, like we had it was bad. But we followed that 1-10 season up with a 1-11. We won the first, in our 1-10 season, we won the first game of the year, and then we lost 10 in a row.
Ooh.
And then the 1-11 season, we lost the first 7 games of the season. So we had a 17-game losing streak.
Yeah.
This was not fun. College was not fun. Like, you didn't want to wear your Tulsa football stuff around campus. Like, it was nothing to be proud of. After that season, we ended up having a coaching change, and let me rewind a little bit. During my sophomore year, I had pretty much made up my mind that I was going to probably go somewhere else. I just wanted to play football, and I thought I felt like I had the ability to be the starter. And really my goal my sophomore year, because I knew we had a player that was a year younger than me, that they had recruited that they really liked. I thought I was a lot better, but I think, and no ill will towards him, I think that's just what you have to think.
Yeah.
You have, and we were good teammates and we were respectful with each other, but I believe that was better than him. So my goal my sophomore year, knowing that I was not going to play, barring injury, was the only way I was going to get in the game. So I just wanted to make our coaches look as silly as possible. I wanted to be so much better than him that even though they weren't going to play me, they would look silly for not doing so. I don't know if I accomplished that, but I do know that I had guys on the team starting to recognize that as the season went along. And so I thought I would go somewhere else. But I really didn't want to. I certainly, you've been around this program for 3 years. I didn't want to leave. So I was like, what if we have a new football coach, then I'll definitely stick around. And so then I actually began to pray for a new coach. And I started to kind of be specific in terms of what I wanted in a new coach, or what I would like. It was like, hey, I'd love to have a godly man that would just open up to give a godly man that would give everybody an opportunity to play. Just play the best players. That's all I wanted. So those were really my two requests. So we did make a coaching change after the season. Steve Cragthorpe was hired, and in his first team meeting, that's what he initially, the first two things he said is, "I'm a man of God, and all jobs are open."
Yeah.
And so
Crazy.
you feel really good when you've prayed about something, and then you're seeing those, those prayers being answered right away. So
if I can even pause and just say, like, God is interested in all aspects of life. You could look at that prayer and like think it's unspiritual because you're praying about football and about coaching and about having an opportunity, but that's sort of, and I love that you said that, because a big part of the heart of this podcast is to show that God is in all aspects of life, including sports, and he's caring about the things that are going on in our everyday lives, not just super spiritual things. So that's kind of crazy how that happened. So go on.
Yeah. So we go through spring ball, and they weren't going to name a starter until fall camp. So going into my junior year, somewhere along the lines of that summer prior to the quarterback that I was competing against had been the starter the last couple years. He decided to transfer and go play baseball at Oklahoma. So I ended up, we had a freshman that I competed against, but I mean, I didn't feel like it was much of a competition. And so I was a starter in 2003. That was the year that I started full time. I started a game my freshman year, my sophomore year as well. But then I was the full-time starter there. So in 2003, we finished the season 8-5, first winning season in 12 years.
Wow.
And I would say since then, Tulsa's had a much more reputable program nationally. And we've had some really good players come through there. I think in this last year, they had a number one draft pick offensive lineman go to Dallas, and other guys. Anyway, but so you feel good about, the trajectory that you put the program on. But the thing I was able to do, and I've always thought this way, was, especially when I was in college, is just using football as a platform to share my testimony. I got the chance to speak to, maybe it's different groups on campus, speak to a lot of different high schools and influence people in that way. I was, like I said, involved with FCA. And then again, there's always, we can talk about all this stuff, but and all the things that the Lord's doing, but at the same time, Satan's trying to take all that stuff away from you too. And so temptations, you can imagine people, when I was a freshman and sophomore and I'm the backup quarterback and we're not winning any football games, like there's not a lot of people really tugging at me. Right. And then become the starting quarterback and things basically change overnight. And so it's like, how do you handle that success? And it was just, my perspective that I had when I was in high school and I was starting as a freshman in high school were really no different. Am I perfect? No. But did I allow the temptations to overwhelm me? I would say I didn't. And that was really just leaning on the Lord. It wasn't certainly not my own doing. Like my flesh definitely wanted to give in. I will say that. But it was relationships I had with guys like Doc Blevins. It was, going to church, no matter, even during the season, we played at that time, the Western Athletic Conference. So we'd play in California, and, we every game was West for the most part. So coming back, you'd get back at 3:00 in the morning and I'd still make it to church Sunday morning. It was important to me to do that. And so we had a great church there and a great support system and a great group of really young Christians on our team. So those are all the things that I think made all the difference in my college experience. Again, I love playing college football. Don't get me wrong, but playing football, it just never defined me. It was never who I was. It was just always what I did. And
Yeah.
even like when you said like former NFL player, I always joke like the NFL stood for not for long for me. But I also don't want to discredit the opportunity that I had. Like such a
Yeah.
great opportunity, and I
Yeah.
don't want to make light of that. But it's never been who I am. I don't think I've ever introduced myself as a former NFL player. And I was just there so briefly that I don't even know if I don't even know. So, I mean, I was with a couple teams, so that was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say when I look back on my college experience, how much the Lord protected me in many ways. Like I did a lot of dumb stuff too, that that the Lord protected me as well.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. You have a theme sort of having a greater purpose beyond just playing football or just what you do in life. You have a guiding principle. And in high school, you know, it was staying focused, trying to be true to your faith and trying to be true to your dreams with football. And then in college, you know, the perspective you have, I think is so rare of like, this is not about me winning games, being on TV and everyone loving me. It's about I have a platform now that I can use and just being faithful with that. And something I try and tell people and tell myself is everyone has a platform. Um, and if you're not faithful with a small platform, what makes you think you'd be faithful with a large platform? So cool to see in your story just saying faithful with what you have and the Lord sort of multiplying and blessing. I mean, you talk about some things out of your control, like your height and your ability, but then also your relationships and connections that really, I mean, it was like the Lord had to be in that, too much to be a coincidence. So I love that. And you talk about, man, I'm I've always been more than a football player. Um, something so many people, whether you play football, whether you work in sales, whatever you do, seeing that that's just part of who you are. That's not it. Um, kind of finishing off, Tuck. I mean, people have to be curious just with the NFL journey. I know you said it wasn't super long or super, exciting, but just a little bit about how it transpired.
Yeah. So, um, it's funny. I remember I think I was in the fifth or sixth grade. I was at I would always go to the football practices after school. And I'd, sit on a ball bag or whatever, try to play catch with someone on the side, and watch the high school team play and or practice. And I remember one of the players was asking me like what I wanted to do. And I was definitely a very matter of fact kid. And I was like, I'm going to play in the NFL. And just like, it's going to happen. And so this guy's name's Lance Embry, and he kind of laughed, and I'm like, I'll bet you $100 I'm going to play in the NFL. And so he like stopped practice, and he was like, hey, our head coach's name was Rex Bruce, and he's like, Coach Bruce, James over here just bet me $100 you're going to play in the NFL someday. And, so obviously that made me really embarrassed. And his response was he's got to play in junior high first. But that was just kind of out of my mindset. And then I remember when I ran into Lance Embry at a homecoming, years ago, after I'd played in the NFL and kind of reminded him of that story. So anyway, kind of unique.
Did he
I guess,
pay up?
in that
Did
regard?
he?
Of course not. Like, but I wouldn't ask him to. Like, just more of a gesture. Because obviously I wouldn't have paid him $100 if I wouldn't have. So
That's fair.
so really kind of how it went down. So my thought was when I was younger is, all I got to do is play, go to Division I school and start for a couple of years, and then you get drafted. Like that's the blueprint, and that's exactly what I did. I went to Tulsa and I started my last 2 years and I got drafted. It was really cool. The draft process was neat. I didn't go to the combine. I did a couple pre-draft visits. I visited with the Cincinnati Bengals. The Kansas City Chiefs came and did a private workout, and then I had a pro day. So I'm trying to think of the teams I talked to the most were probably like the Jets, the Buccaneers. I feel like I talked to the Bucs a lot, the Falcons, and then obviously Kansas City. So the draft's happening, and I knew I'd be a late round draft pick. Certainly, they used to do it 2 days. Day one was like rounds 1 through 3, and then I think it's 4 through 7, day 2. So I got drafted in the 7th round. They literally, when they're on the clock, they call you, and so you're on the phone, and it was. I don't know if they're on the phone with someone else that made it sound like they were on the phone with 2 people and saying, "Hey, we're going to draft you." And then it was like, "Okay, wait, hold on. Maybe we're going to draft someone else." And it's like, "No, congratulations, we're going to draft you." And then really probably, I don't know, 5-6 seconds later, my parents are in their room. I was at my cousin's house. Not a lot of people there. Didn't need to be, but it was kind of like, yeah, just like watch the TV. And then Paul Tagliabue was the commissioner, so he comes up and then announces that, and then you kind of see your name flip up. It was really neat.
Yeah.
And so now obviously you get a lot of phone calls and text messages of congratulations, and so you go to a pre-draft or no, a rookie camp. So the other quarterback there was Jason White. So Jason White played quarterback at Oklahoma, won a Heisman Trophy. Awesome guy. And I think I don't know if the common, everyone thought, hey, well, we're going to go to rookie camp, but they're probably going to sign Jason White and not James Kilian, not the quarterback from Tulsa, even though that's the guy they drafted. But that's not what happened. Obviously, Jason I got to know him a little bit during that time, an awesome guy. I remember watching the sports Friday night or the Sunday night sports show in Oklahoma City or Tulsa, wherever it was out of, and talking about that. And it was just hard for it was really hard for the sports people, the talking heads, to really say, oh, like this quarterback from Tulsa beat out this Heisman Trophy winner from Oklahoma. Like, it was just tough for them to do that. The best they could say was, I guess the tie goes to the draft pick. But which was fine. But then once I got back for OTAs, so before we go to training camp, we go to OTAs. That was the first time I was ever like you're starstruck. Like, I don't know if everybody's that way, but it's like, you got Tony Gonzalez, Priest Holmes, Larry Johnson, Willie Roaf, Brian Waters. Oh man, Will Shields. These are Hall of Fame players.
Yeah.
And then you're handing the ball off to Priest Holmes. You're like, this is crazy. And so, it was really neat. And Trent Green was an all-pro quarterback as well. We just had they were great people. They were absolutely great people. And so went through training camp with them, ended up not making the final cut. I think they cut down to 61 and then they cut down to 53. So I didn't make the cut to 53. I made it to the cut of 61. Others, a lot of circumstances have to go your way that just didn't. I ended up in my first preseason game. This would be a fun story, I think, to hear. You always, we have a 2-minute offense that we practice, but as the 4th string quarterback, you don't get you get very little reps, as you can imagine. So I knew, I was like, I'm going to get in the game and I'm going to have to do the 2-minute drill. like I'm gonna have to run a 2-minute offense. Like I just know that's how it's gonna happen. Like it's
Mm.
just how it's gonna happen. And so we're, it's funny because I live in Minnesota now. So we played the Vikings, and it's funny because when I was at Tulsa, we played the Gophers. So I played
Oh,
in the Metrodome against the Gophers and against the Vikings. So I
wow.
don't, so game's going down, it's winding down, and then it's like, hey James, you're going to get this last series, and I'm like, okay, great, it's going to be the two. It's like there's like a minute 27 seconds left, and I remember just already, I was already prepared mentally, like this is how it's going to go. Prior to the game, we get a ready list of like 300 plays, like, hey, this is how many plays we go into the game with, and our offensive coordinator said, just mark off mark off any plays you don't like, and I
Mm.
won't call them when you're in. I marked off one play.
Wow.
One play. I was like, this is one play I just don't feel good about. I'm not comfortable with.
And he called it.
Well, of course he called it. So we're breaking the huddle. Coach Dick Vermeil's our head coach. He's like, you got one timeout, and he's like, wait, hold on. We have no time. So it's like, even better, perfect. Like, let's just make it the worst possible scenario. I'm getting my first NFL experience. I'm running a 2-minute offense that I've never ran, and we have no timeouts.
And are you down?
We're down less than 2 scores, so it's not the winning drive.
Okay.
It's not like the game's really pretty much over.
Yeah.
But not for me, right? This is
Right.
my
Right.
first NFL experience, and so we do march down the field, and then we call play. There's times running, call the play, and it's the one play that I wasn't good with, I wasn't comfortable with, and I could not get it called. They say the name in the huddle, and I just keep looking over like, I don't know. And so I just called it the best that I can in the huddle. You can imagine how wordy these plays are.
Mm.
And I'm in there with the other bunch of rookies too. So we're all looking at each other like, I don't know. So I ended up just really kind of turning into a quarterback draw. And I ended up running in the end zone and scored a touchdown on that play.
Mm.
So it was kind of funny in that regard. But that was my most NFL action, I would say, or my first NFL action, I would say. I played more in some other preseason games, but those were that was a scenario that was pretty nerve-wracking. And
Man.
but I will say that that drive probably made me about $10,000.
Wow.
So after that, then I got everybody has like a card deal. You get some money for trading cards, and I got a lot more money after that. They contacted me shortly thereafter, and I signed a bunch of, because they don't know what rookie's going to be good.
Right.
So hey, this rookie comes in and takes a 2-minute drive down the field, scores a touchdown. Maybe there's something to him.
Man.
One of the cards I have is a Topps card. My last name is Kilian. It's 1L Kilian. Most people spell it with 2. Well, the Topps card, they spelled my rookie card with 2 L's, and I'm like, this is destiny now, like for sure. I'm thinking like this is going to be like my Brett Favre story, and this man, if you have a Kilian rookie card with 2 L's, you're gonna that thing's gonna be worth some money. But that part of the story never happened.
So I want to ask you a question in all that, because so many kids they grow up with that dream, right, of hearing their name called at the draft, the NFL, NBA, MLB, or whatever sport. They have that dream, and I think you think if that dream came true, I would kind of find my ultimate fulfillment, right? Like I would be happy if that happened. Obviously it was an awesome experience being drafted and then scoring a touchdown in the NFL, like all that. But speak to sort of, on one hand, yes, it's awesome living your dream, working hard for it and doing it. But on the other hand, like, was it what you thought? Was it the ultimate fulfillment that people think?
Not for me, I would say. um, it was an interesting, as I reflect, and even reflected at the time, I I put so much emphasis and so much time and energy into attaining this thing. And then once I did, it was kind of like I did feel a sense of fulfillment. Um, but it was kind of like, oh, I set this goal and now I've achieved it.
Mm,
So what do I do now? Like, I mean, obviously you'd love to like continue to play, but I felt a sense of like accomplishment.
yeah.
And really kind of since then, I've kind of gone away from the idea of setting goals
Mm,
because I want to actually set something that's like almost unattainable.
mm,
And not even like a tangible thing, but I talk a lot about process. We talk about this as the process. And it's like just constantly, you know, um, living a certain way, behaving a certain way that along the way you're going to be successful in what you do.
mm,
But there's not necessarily like a prize you're chasing. It's like you're chasing the behavior, you're chasing like the consistency, and it
yeah.
becomes more like a daily accomplishment.
Mm, it's good.
If that makes sense, I hope that does. But it's like I set out for this goal, I achieved it, awesome, and then everything else was to me was like just extra.
Yeah.
It was like I don't know. But it would have been nice to have a 10-year career in the NFL. Absolutely, holy cow, be great. Um, but I don't have any regret or remorse.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah, that's good. I think we can lean, at least coming from a faith perspective, it's we know that our ultimate fulfillment won't come from our worldly accomplishments. But I think that can be taken too far to think like your goals and accomplishments are like a bad thing or unspiritual thing. And
right,
I encourage people like have a dream, chase it, work hard, be consistent, like go get your success, but just know that that doesn't ultimately define you. And like you said, once you achieve it, it's like, okay, well now what? And I love you said process. I think about that a lot of like, yeah, everyday living a process. Sure, I have goals in mind for this podcast. I have goals for my career. I have goals for training as a paracyclist, but the process of getting up every day and training every day, pursuing something, just building consistent successful habits is I don't I would you say is better than the dream in a sense?
um, I would, because I would just say the dream will not happen unless you do these things. So like sometimes we just get focused on the one thing, and then people don't do all the stuff it takes that it
Right.
requires. And some of that comes with age. I was just thinking as you were kind of talking about setting goals and having goals, and sometimes we can think that they're bad things as Christians in a weird way. I remember we won the state championship my senior year in high school. That's the only state championship that we won. I think we could have won another, maybe a third, um, but we didn't. But we played in the state championship all but one year. My freshman year, we got beat in the state championship. My sophomore year, we got beat in the semis. That was probably our best, a great year to win it. And then actually, my junior year, we got beat in the semis too. It's actually terrible. But I thought there was a time like my sophomore year, I'm like, I'm putting so much time, effort, energy to think about winning a state championship and getting a state championship ring. I wonder if God's not allowing me to do that because I'm putting that up like as an idol and something in
Mm,
front of him. I would say, I mean, I'm talking to like my 15-year-old self, like don't be so hard on yourself. Like so it's kind of, pretty, pretty fundamentalist in terms of thinking that way. I don't think God was keeping me from having a state championship because I was putting up as an idol. But that's definitely those are things that I thought. I'm like, is this becoming my God?
Yeah.
But those are the conversations that you have with yourself, in the spiritual world, or in your Christian walk, to be like, is this more important than being a Christian? Like,
right.
And so that's just a young mind developing.
Yeah.
And so as I look back and then think about how I thought about stuff and how I think about things now, not that they're a lot different, but I have a lot different perspective.
Totally.
So those are just interesting thoughts that I had.
Yeah. So I know kind of there's a lot that could be said here, but if you want to talk briefly, kind of putting a cap on your athletic journey, just getting into coaching, why coaching, what coaching means to you.
So, why I coach is to develop young men. I mean, I coach college football. That's why I do it. And are there aspirations to coach at higher levels? I would say sometimes, like my ego wants me to do that. And there's, like financially, it's more beneficial, like all these things, but I've been there and I've seen it, and I've coached at that level prior to being married or having kids. And I just know what it takes away. And I just think it's really important that I'm home with my kids. Like, I could maybe try to pursue other career, and make more money, and then I'm not going to be home. My kids are not going to understand that. Why is daddy never home? It's like they just won't understand. And I've seen really great families like crippled, or great kids like not have good lives because they're basically it's a one parent household. So I wouldn't say no one's calling me. It's not like I'm turning these jobs down, but those are things that I think about. And that's why I like coaching at the level that I'm at, because it aligns more with what I want to do. I can focus on my relationship with our players and not be as concerned about, what NL ideal are we going to have to get for these guys? What collective are we going to have to establish with our donors? Like relationship with your players, like that certainly doesn't become secondary, but you can't have a relationship with everybody.
Right.
You need to have a relationship with your best players. But here I can have a relationship with everybody. And that really everybody's important. And so that's what got me into coaching. And that's what allowed me to like kind of settle at the level that I like. And there are certainly, like, again, I still have thoughts about different things and doing different things. And it doesn't mean that I won't do those at some point. But right now I feel like that I'm where the Lord has led me to be. And I just want to do the best I can here, and do really I want to do what's best for our players. And that's really my priority. If it makes people upset, so be it. I'm trying to do what's best for them.
Yeah. The cool thing in college too is you bring in boys and they leave as young men, and that's got to be pretty special.
It's neat to see. And I've coached high school. I just like working with 18 to 22-year-olds. And I just think that 4 years of college is like just such exponential growth, that you really can have a really positive impact, on young men. And some of the guys we have on our team don't have, they may not have positive role models growing up. And so can you maybe you're a role model, you hope that you are, but at least you're a model of something, of a man, a dad. My kids come around a lot to be like, hey, this is something, like, you may like what I do and you may not like what I do, but at least you're seeing somebody in a father role. And then hopefully the advice that we're giving them or the things that we're trying to instill in them are things that are going to help them be successful in life, regardless of what career path they take. We're really focusing on the behavior, not the we talk about behavioral skills, but versus technical skills.
That's good. I want to transition. You touched on these aspects of your faith journey and being involved in FCA, which is Fellowship of Christian Athletes. If anyone doesn't know that, being involved with FCA, being involved with church. If you can speak to maybe some key aspects of your faith and what it means to you, or any pivotal moment that you want to share that you didn't share already, just speak to that.
Okay. I'll just kind of go back really all the way, in terms of when I became a Christian at a young age. I think sometimes in doing so, you question it. Like, did I do it because I wanted to? Did I feel influenced? Like, did I just do it because everybody else did it? All these other things. So I really had I struggled with that a lot, in terms of am I saved? And I grew up Southern Baptist. So, I mean, for you guys that don't know, it's like, it's kind of like the once saved, always saved, which I do believe. But I mean, it's just salvation is like from the time you can hear it, like that's Sunday mornings are just salvation messages. You want the teaching, you come back Sunday night or Wednesday. That's when the teaching happens, not on Sunday morning. It's a salvation service. So you're getting an altar call every Sunday. And so, anyways, I won't go into that just in terms of time. So I went forward a number of times to be saved. I was baptized twice because I don't know if I really knew what I was doing the first time. And I remember talking to my mom about that. I was probably like 10 or 11, maybe I was a little older. And she was like, your relationship with God is personal. You do what you think God wants you to do, and don't worry about what other people say. I would say that's a pivotal moment in my life. Not only in that way, not only in a spiritual way, but also just in a way that I view things. Like I used to say that I don't care what people think. That's not true. I don't let what people think affect what I know I need to do. I'm aware of what people think. I do care what people think. I just don't let it keep me from doing what I know needs to be done. Right. And so the advice that I would give people in terms of like Christian is, listen to the Lord and do what you think he's leading you to do. And if he's leading you to do something, you should do that, regardless of what friends and family, or even worse, people you don't know and don't even care about you think. And so I would say that that was a pivotal moment. And it's just really, I think about, the scripture. It's like, be able to give testimony for God. And it's easy for me to do that. I can just think about all the things that the Lord's done in my life, the things he's brought me through. And I just have a belief and a faith that he'll always take care of me. And things seem to always work out.
Yeah.
So I don't spend a ton of time worried about what my next move's going to be, what the next thing's going to be. The Lord he's just always opened the doors. Yeah. So I just kind of believe and expect he'll continue to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. So you talked about using your platform as kind of a college QB1 on a winning team, kind of having a stage. What does using your platform mean to you now?
It's more so the platform as what I'm doing currently, like as a football coach. I do very little outreach, I guess I would say. As I think about like what I'm doing in my Christian faith, it's not a ton of outreach, talking to other schools, talking to youth groups and stuff. Um, I have a passion for that stuff. I also have 3 young kids at home and a wife that works full time and a job that's very time consuming.
Yeah.
So I don't know that that's where I am right now with that. But in terms of investing in our players, and like I'm so much, and our players know this, it's more about actions and less about words.
Yeah.
I do share scripture from time to time. I do share my testimony from time to time. But more important, it's like I have to behave a certain way.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what I believe. And our guys know that. And then more importantly, my actions, the way I carry myself, have to reflect that. And I would say by and large, I hope that they do. I believe that they do. But I also know that there are times where I'm like, that is not a good example of what a believer should say or do or behave.
Yeah. But I even think about, some of the coaches and the leaders who have impacted me most. You don't remember their sermon. You don't remember their message. You remember the relationship that you had with them, seeing them day in, day out, the way they carried themselves. And man, I don't know the ins and outs, but I'm sure the perspective that you have, even just doing your job with integrity, and as a head college coach, I'm sure there are times and ways you could do things the wrong way. And that in and of itself is, to me, a testimony and an example of using your platform. I mean, how many coaches are more concerned about maybe wins and losses than you said? What you care most about is developing young men. And yeah, that's huge. I don't know if you have any more to say there.
I would say I do care about wins and losses, but it kind of goes back to the process part. If you invest in your players and you develop them and they behave and they do all the things you ask them to do and they understand there's a right way to do stuff, winning football games is a byproduct of doing things the right way. So that's like the win and loss record is really kind of an indicator of like how well are you doing it. And there's lots of factors that play into it. Like, there's lots of factors that play into that. Like, if you're in Alabama and you go 9-3, that's not a good year.
Right.
You're going to get fired. There are other places. Let's just stay in the SEC, maybe Mississippi State. They go 9-3 or 10-4. They're going to give you a raise.
Right.
So yeah, we're focusing on the wins and losses of. I shouldn't say we're not focusing on the wins and losses, but they are important. But I just believe it really comes down to the process that you follow and what are your goals and like, I guess, what is your why?
Yeah.
For me, football is just the what and the how. It's not the why. It's just the what and the how. And some people I just don't think keep a good perspective with the things that they're trying to do.
Right. That's good. So obviously there are so many lessons that we learn playing sports that apply to our lives. But if you could pull out one thing that you've learned in the sports world and you've seen impact your life beyond sports, what would that be?
Gosh. So for so much of my, the sport I coach it's all about, it's a team sport. Like there's no individual. So the individual piece is it's not even highlighted. I hate that it's highlighted in like culture and stuff for football, like these premier guys, but it's not how you win football games. You win football games with a group of people that share the same goals, the same visions, and are willing to make sacrifices for each other. It's really like love in the true sense of the word. Doing the things that you need to do or you have to do versus things you want to do. And oftentimes in sports, if you just look at it as like, hey, I do it when I want to, or I only do the things I want to do, you will have zero success. You'll also have zero success in life. So I would say that the thing that I've learned the most by playing sports is you just decide what you want to do, and then you have to do the work to accomplish that. Like people think that there's that you have a lot of decisions, like you have a lot of choices, like, this whole paralysis by analysis. If you want to be successful, you don't have a lot of choices. Like it's pretty much, the path is pretty much laid out, and you're gonna have to say no to a lot of things.
It's good.
It's not that difficult. I think sports for me has painted that picture very clear. And that's just a lens that I look through. And I just don't think you can accomplish anything or build anything of any with any staying power without your foundation being in trust and love. So
it's good.
Those are the things. I guess that's the biggest thing I pulled out of playing sports.
Yeah. I'm sure. I mean, we could talk for another
hour about trust and love, no doubt.
But as we sort of come to a close here on the Dear Young Athlete podcast, we ask every guest, complete the statement, Dear Young Athlete. What do you want to say to your players? What would you say to that younger James Kilian?
Yeah. I would say, dear young athlete, don't compare yourself to others, to people around you, to other peers. To just focus on yourself. Be the absolute best player that you can be. If something's truly important to you and you want to accomplish it, then you have to. Your behavior has to reflect that. You don't have to go. Don't go around talking about it. You don't have to go tell people what you're going to do. Just focus on yourself. Don't compare yourself to others. And if you do that, you'll find, I think, a sense of peace and accomplishment with what you are able to do. I just think so many times people are comparing themselves to other people. I mean, I don't want to get on a tangent, but I mean, we compare our image, the way we look to people in a magazine or people on Instagram or Facebook, and they're not even real people.
Right.
They have filters. There's editing. Like it's not even a reality.
Yeah.
And we're holding ourselves to something that's not even attainable. So I would say just focus on yourself and be the absolute best. In this case, I would say, turn your eyes on the Lord and focus on Him, and all other things will take care of themselves. But if we're looking strictly from an athletic standpoint, I would say still focus on yourself and not compare yourself to others.
Right. Yeah, that's the old saying. Can't remember who said it, but comparison is a thief of joy, right? And when I go look on Instagram or look at a magazine and start comparing myself to everyone else, I feel discontent with what I have based on something not even real, like you said. But then B, you miss what's right in front of you. You miss the opportunities, like you're coaching D3 football. If you sat around every day wishing you were Nick Saban, you'd be missing the amazing opportunity that you have right in front of you. And same is true, I think, for all of us in our own respective lives. So that's a good word. Any final thoughts, any last words as we shut it down?
I just want to thank you for your time and putting this together, and really the ministry and the vision that you have with this podcast, and really trying to reach others and share your own story. and your testimony with others, because I think that it should bring a lot of perspective to every human that hears what you're going through, and then how you've chosen to respond based on the circumstances that you have to deal with. And I think that is a lesson or a story or a message that everyone should hear.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time and giving us the awesome insight that you've gained on your walk. So I appreciate it. And man, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, JT.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Dear Young Athlete podcast. Make sure you check out our website linked in the description and find out how you could bring Dear Young Athlete to your team or your group. Check out our merchandise and use code all caps DYA20 and take 20% off your first order. Also, consider partnering with us on Patreon. You'll get regular discounts, you'll get exclusive content, and you'll be supporting a great movement. Wherever you're listening, make sure you follow and leave us a review. It really helps the algorithm and helps this podcast reach more people. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.